What's up and welcome back to Cryptographics. I think this is the first stream we're doing in like almost a month. And I am pleased to say that I am here with a good friend and also a guy that you're going to want to listen very, very close to when it comes to Hedron and Icosa. CryptoSloth, welcome to the stream, my man.
What's up, Graphics? How you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. It's so good to have you on here. I know we've been chatting a lot, like in Telegram and voice chats and stuff, but it's great to finally stream, especially, I mean, you're dope. You have, like, I think you're just a really cool human in general, but also just how much you know about this is just awesome. So guys, if you're just tuning in, before I introduce CryptoSloth, go to, there's two links in the description here. One, because you're going to want to pay attention to every word that comes out of this man's mouth. Go follow him on Twitter and then go subscribe to his YouTube. The man's 200 subs away from hitting the 1K mark. Let's try and get him today to 1,000 subs. All right. So before we go into who you are, Sloth, real quick, just want to welcome everybody in. And I see there's a few people here.
Yeah, thanks for that dope introduction, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, no sweat.
Hope I can live up to it. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, no pressure or anything here.
Yeah.
We got Frosty Dog in here. Hedron staking. It's going to be lit. Thanks for all your work and help. Hey, no problem, man. I'm glad you're here to learn now because we're all three of us, Frosty and us two, everyone in here is still learning. There's so much to learn on this whole ecosystem. It's incredible. Godfather J6 up in here. What's up, brother? What up, everyone? We got Colin Jackson. We got Mudhog. Let's go. Yes. Sloth and Graphics are awesome. You're awesome, Colin. Appreciate
Thanks,
that. Sloth
man.
is awesome. Sweet. I feel like we'll slowly get more people piling in here. So, guys, the memo for today, we're going to start with Hedron, and we're going to move into Icosa. Then we're going to move into Whatsa, and we're going to eventually end, hopefully, a little bit of game theory talk. So, I'm going to introduce, and we're going to talk about, who Sloth is real quick and why he's here. And then we're going to move into the Q&As here. So save your questions for those segments. Just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. So that way it's not just rapid fire random questions and we're kind of trying to juggle things. We're kind of going to keep this structured so we can get through this in a timely manner and get all these questions laid out and everything making sense. So Sloth, we've actually never had this conversation. How did you get into crypto, period? Like how did you get from pre-crypto to where you are right here, right now?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, obviously I've known about crypto for a while. Just like Bitcoin, just the name. And like there was a time, I think it was like around 2016, 2017, where I was like, I had like $200 in my bank account and I like opened up a Coinbase account and I was like, yeah, you know what? For this thing to even make me like $2,000, it has to 10x. Nothing ever 10x's. And so I just forgot about it. And it's like put it in the back of my mind until actually about a year ago. I've been in crypto for about a year now. And I was just listening to a podcast with, Dollar Cost Crypto, Miguel.
Of course.
Him and Cultivate Crypto, they were on a podcast. And just, I don't know, I've been thinking about blockchain just for a while. And then something about that podcast, and all clicked. I'm like, why am I not investing in this? Like, I have a little bit of money. I'd already been working. I'm in school right now, but I'd been working for a couple years before that. And I'm just like, why hadn't I been investing in that? And then since then, it's been like 20 to 40 hours of just consuming content every week from then. I did their course a couple times. And then my own research, and then the majority of my research led me down the Richard Hart Hex pathway. Like that was kind of like where the most information was, the best information was, and like I found myself learning the most when I listened to like Hex people and when listening to Richard Hart on top of like the crypto mindset course as well. And so just kind of naturally through this whole year, I've just been like slowly like my bag has been decreasing from a bunch of coins to mostly just like Hex, PulseChain, and then now like Hedron and eventually like Icosa stuff coming up. So yeah, I'm a crypto noob. I've kind of dove in head first, and it's become my kind of like, what's the word, like my education and like entertainment at the same time, whatever that's called, edutainment.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though because we sound like we got in fairly close, similar times. Honestly, I got in about last year. I mean, I started researching about would have been April-ish. And it's funny that you say DCC and Charlie. Okay, yeah. So literally, we started
about the same month. Hell yeah! Look at that.
Just totally in sync. I love it. And also, DCC and Charlie also were the people who got me onto Hex. Well, it was mostly Miguel, but on a Fresh and Fit stream, I happened to tune into one, and he mentioned Hex, and it planted the seed. And then Wales.
I think that was the podcast. Yeah, I think that was the podcast that Charlie and Miguel were on that I listened to.
That's
Dude, we have the
incredible.
Same story,
Dude,
same Genesis story.
We have the same Genesis story. This is incredible. Oh my God. Well, that's awesome though. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to, the one thing you said I literally everyone says the same thing though. And it still doesn't, it's not cliche. It's just so true. And it's never been more true for anywhere else I've ever seen or anyone that I've even talked to in crypto is like how smart and how much you can learn from the people in this ecosystem. It's crazy. Everyone's got something to say. Everyone's teaching. Everyone's giving some kind of value. It's incredible to me. So yeah, it's mind boggling.
Yeah. Look at us now, man. Now we're contributing to the conversation a year later after all that.
It blows my mind, man. It blows my mind. So, well, love the story. It's cool that we're actually this story. Oh man, that's really cool. So, guys, we got a couple more people hopping in here. I'm seeing Million. We got John Eddy, Pulse Former, and yes, we are so early. With the fact that the test net is just launching now for all of this, and it's not even complete. I don't think it's complete. No, we got a couple more additions we're waiting on, right on the test net, if I'm not mistaken.
For Icosa?
Yeah, for Icosa.
Yeah, I think Alex said before it's pretty much done. He's looking to potentially make one more change we can talk about in a bit when we get to that part of the system. But like everything else, it's pretty much done. I think it's like the final tweaks. There's not anything major going on. We're pretty close.
Amazing. That's so sick, man. Oh, I can't wait till this all launches. So, all right, guys, for everyone in the chat, we got 28 people in here. Before we go into Hedron, get your questions ready. We are going to be diving into, if you have questions about what Hedron is, we're going to summarize real quick and kind of go in to give the basic rundown of what it is. But guys, get your questions ready for Hedron specifically. And the next half hour-ish, we're going to dive in as deep as we need to answer your questions there. But before we go there, if you haven't already, go to the 2 links below for CryptoSloth's Twitter and his YouTube. Follow and subscribe. Smash the like on this video. And if you haven't already, smash the big red button on the description for this video. So, guys, without further ado,
I appreciate that everybody does that, by the way.
Yeah, everybody do that, thank you. Shout out to you if you're doing that. I see Shane Duck in here. Thanks for tuning in, brother. Good morning from Australia. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. We got Anthony Buzz and Sloth's in chat. Sloth's in chat.
I'm here, man.
All right. Okay, guys. So, Sloth, what would you say? Because I would lead this, but I think you just have such a simple way of, you have such a great overview of the system itself, and you've put it even to me quite simply. So, as simply put as you can, what is Hedron?
Yeah, so Hedron, I think most simply, is a system that gives optionality, flexibility, and liquidity to hex stakers. And it does this through multiple ways. First, the flexibility comes through the piece of tech that most people in the community like, and that's the HSI. We'll get into the specifics of that later, but essentially what it does, it makes hex stakes tradable, as well as confers the properties of a smart contract and NFTs to hex stakes. So that makes hex stakes interoperable. So we can use our hex stakes to communicate with other parts of the blockchain and other blockchains as well more easily than we did before Hedron was created. It also offers liquidity in the form of Hedron, in that if you have a hex stake, just as you're entitled to more hex every day, you're also entitled to a certain number of Hedron every day. So presumably, if the price of that Hedron is sufficient, you can sell it instead of selling your hex stake, or instead of having to emergency end stake. And that's also kind of a function of the trading stakes. Instead of emergency end staking, you could trade the stake potentially on like OpenSea, Rarible, NFTX, somewhere where NFTs are traded, and instead of incurring some kind of penalties, somebody will buy that stake off of you, one for one. Yeah, that's pretty much the main thing. And the last thing is it does also offer credit, where you can take an advance on all the Hedron you would be entitled to if you waited the entirety of your stake. So there is potential leverage opportunities there, although user beware. It's leverage. It's dangerous. As Richard Hart says, ladies, liquor, and leverage is the 3 things that destroy men. Rich men.
He's been saying that a hell of a lot lately too, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the 80-foot view, kind of like what Hedron is.
Yeah, and I love it. It's very well said. I think it's very simply put. It's like you claim it. Basically, you get it's incentivized stakes. It's incentivized to staking. You get not free liquidity, but you got to pay. You had to pay for hex originally to do that, and then you also have the option to. The one thing that's nice about Hedron too is you get it every day if you so chose as well. You don't have to wait the life of the stake in order to realize some of the possible Hedron you could mint. You could do that every single day. Of course, it's going to cost you a bit in gas, but if you ever needed to, I mean, you could let it save up for a bit. And all of a sudden on day 60, you're like, you know what? That's enough for me. Boom, take it out, sell it, do whatever you want with it. You have that optionality. And
Exactly.
it's cool because, you know, Hedron also kind of works in an inverse way to this. When we're talking about the supply of Hex, Hex kind of works in a very long and slow exponential curve in the supply inflation. And Hedron works opposite now, roughly, because it has inflation and deflationary mechanics built in. So if you think about a Bitcoin curve, like the curve for the supply increase, it kind of goes up very steep in the beginning and it slowly tapers off and flattens out to where we are now. And that'll kind of be something similar to what we'll see over time with Hedron. So over time, Hedron looks crazy right now because everything's going up and up and up and up and up in the numbers. And like there's tons of Hedron and everyone's thinking that the whales are going to dump it into oblivion and that it's just a shit coin. But wait a bit. Just wait a bit. Things will change very dramatically. This is the highest inflationary period that's ever going to happen in Hedron. Over time, that's going to almost go away. And as the T-share rate goes up, that's when you're really going to see Hedron take off in its rarity. It's going to be nuts. So I did star real quick a comment. Let's see here. Frosty Dog. If Hex reaches $1, about what price will Hedron be at? Now, to say Hedron will be at a specific price, obviously it doesn't make sense. You can't really put anything to that. But what you can do is this thing that's called a strike through price or the arbitrage point. Now, what Sloth was saying earlier was talking about HSIs. Now, there is this point at which the amount of Hedron that you would be able to borrow from one of these HSIs, if you were to advance it and like do the leverage that we were talking about, if Hedron was at a certain point, you could actually advance that Hedron and it would be worth more than the HSI that you originally bought it with. Then you could basically buy Hex, which would be more Hex than you originally bought, stake that into an HSI, mint more Hedron, and you could do this cycle. Now we can find out what that price would be today, actually quite easily. So if Hex was $1 today, I think it's somewhere around the 7,400 Hex mark for a T-share over 5555. Is that about right? 74, 75, 7,600?
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yep.
Right. So now one T-share.
I think it's 7,700.
7,700?
Yeah.
So it'd be 7,700 divided by 5.555 million. And that should be the price of what Hedron would need to be at to make the amount of Hedron you could mint equivalent to the price of the stake you bought. Yeah. If Hex reaches $1.
Yep. And that's assuming the T-share rate is the same. Yeah, it's assuming the T-share rate is the same. So it's going to go up over time, which means it's actually going to be a little bit more expensive than what we're calculating now for that fair value price. And that fair value price formula, it's like the dollar value of a B share divided by the average stake length is like the average price or the average amount of money that needs to enter the system to produce one Hedron token. And it's also that same arbitrage price that you were just talking about, because if it goes over that, then we can just start making stakes to print Hedron to just sell to immediately make money.
Right.
See if I can get an actual price. So,
that would be dope. And so I know one thing I want to put out for everyone that's watching this stream now, we're 14 minutes in. This stream is probably going to be technical, not out of intention, but just because this is built on top of Hex and it is a layer 2 on Hex, and it's got many moving parts that are built on top of Hex's moving parts. And there's another system that's being tied into the original Hedron design that's just further emphasizing the technicalities. So if you are getting lost and you're watching the stream right now, hopefully live, drop a question. It doesn't matter how simple it is. It can be anything at all. We want you to get up to speed here. The point of this is to answer your questions, to make sure that you understand this as best as you can for when Icosa and the whole Icosa platform actually launches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do the calculation later. I want to give you my undivided attention. Hydrology 101 in the chat. You do the calculation. I know you can do it really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, we need our computer scientists in the background working for us here. All right. So now we've kind of talked about with Hedron, what like it's going to get more rare over time. Just the functionalities of HSIs. I was lost at hello.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. That's
Strap
fair,
in,
man.
Frosty.
It's one of those days, I guess. Hey. So we've talked about HSIs, we talked about borrowing. We talked about, what will happen over time with Hedron supply. Let's quickly talk about the whale situation and this idea that the whales are going to dump Hedron into oblivion, that the whales have these big 10x stakes, and they're going to basically hurt the price. So what would you say to someone that is asking or arguing that?
Yeah. So first, it is a very real concern in the system. So because the amount of Hedron that you're entitled to is a function of the number of B shares that you own. Let's see. Oh, he's talking about hydrology. What would the price of Hedron be at that point?
The
But
ARB point.
yeah. But where was I going? Okay. So because the amount of Hedron you're entitled to is a function of how many B shares you own and how long you own them. Because there is an inequitable distribution or unequal distribution of T shares, and that they're mostly concentrated within a very small number of people, they basically have the lion's share of the inflation of the system, just because they own so many more T shares than we do. Like at some point, there's 67-cent T shares. So like you could, if you could get it for like 20-cent T-shares if you stake 5555. So they have tens of thousands of T-shares, which are minting, and then on top of that, there was a launch phase bonus at the beginning. And the Hedron community advertised this actually pretty heavily, despite maybe it not being beneficial to the individual players. But they got essentially 10x the number of tokens they already had on top of the crazy amount that they had in the first place. And so that's the criticism of the system. And it's that the small number of people who are getting this token for free. So because they have no skin in the game, they have no reason to hold it. They're just going to dump this forever. And then they have these tokens, with the 10x bonus for 15 years. So it's a 15-year perpetual dump token. Why would I ever buy it? And it goes a step further. That problem goes a step farther because it directly hinders the inability of the system to increase in price, which then doesn't incentivize people to take advances. And if people don't take advances, then the burn function, I don't know if we've gone into that yet, but the burn function of Hedron can't take off. And it's this kind of like cycle that you can't break out of because the price is low. People don't take advances. Because people don't take advances, liquidations never happen. And because liquidations never happen, Hedron doesn't burn. And because Hedron doesn't burn, the price doesn't go up, which prevents that loop from ever stopping. And so now you just have a bunch of people dumping the price with no hope of it ever coming out. That's what the centralization fund essentially around Hedron is. And it's not like factually wrong. I just don't think it appropriately conceptualizes, or it appropriately contextualizes, that's the word, appropriately contextualizes the entire system along an appropriate time frame. And so let's look at, for instance, all of these whales. They got 2 years of Hedron at the very beginning, and when the price 12x in like a week, which was a crazy time, a lot of them dumped. They dumped a lot of tokens, billions and billions of tokens that they got for free, and they cashed out. If you look at the liquidity in the Uniswap pools, there's not enough Hedron in the liquidity pools for every single whale, and really even one whale, to get back the position that they lost, that they sold. They would have to run the price up. Well, they can't even run the price up because the Hedron's just simply not there. We could assume other people would sell into it, so maybe they could do it, but they would have to really run the price up against themselves. And so what that means is, because one of the prerequisites for the price to go up sufficiently to get advances to happen is a distribution of the tokens across multiple, more wider range of wallets. And we're seeing that already. And we're seeing that before Icosa happens. I'm sure we'll get into how Icosa helps the situation in a bit. But we're already seeing the system kind of work towards getting supply distributed amongst as many players as possible, and to people like you and me who don't have as many T-shares because we haven't been in the system for as long as these early players. We're accumulating very large bags relative to what we could get via hex staking. So, people who don't people who benefit from the system just because they have the T-shares are giving the coins to people like us who believe in the system and see the value in the system and are more long-term holders, which is the prerequisite for that price to go up. And everybody in the chat knew that this would need to happen in the Hedron chat before the launch. This was very common knowledge. It's like, yeah, this is like a 2 to 3 year play, but like when it happens, when that price hits whatever threshold it needs to for people to start taking advances and Hedron to be burned, whenever that starts to happen, like you better be strapped in, like you better have your position, because it's going to take off and it's not even going to happen. And honestly, I thought that happened. A part of it happened at the very beginning. Like when it did 12x, I was not expecting that. But
No.
I was not expecting that at all in a week, which was crazy. But yeah, did that kind of answer the question a little bit?
Yeah. I think it does. Yeah, I think the big thing is liquidity. I mean, like liquidity is so low with Hedron right now. It's even if a whale would want to dump it, they move the price against themselves. They want to buy back in, they move the price against themselves, and it's going to be a hard time for them. They're going to be losing either way. And so this argument, or go ahead.
Yes, and really, I think if I were to put myself in the whale position, where you have so many tokens just for free, like you want this thing to do well because you have so many of it. And yeah, you can just continue to extract value from it over time. But like you were saying, like the price gets so low and people are buying it, like there is no liquidity for you to exit into. And so it's like then they're just sitting on these tokens that they can't even exit with just because the price is so low, and they're going to just like completely move it against themselves. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, that's bang on. And I think the thing that, a lot of people had criticisms of was that Hedron was just a token that was, you hold it, and now that where we're going to go in a minute or a few minutes here, when we talk about Icosa, that changes everything. Now Hedron, all of a sudden, all its mechanics get just thrust out in the open, and they get lit up, and they're going to be just emphasized ridiculously large amount. There's one question here that I had that I wanted to. So what does Hedron do? So Hedron on its own, it is mintable for having T-shares. You can advance borrow it. It's kind of like you put it in a very eloquent way, a decentralized credit.
Yeah, that's how I like to describe it. Yeah.
I love that. that. Can you kind of run on that just a bit, just to really hit that home, like what you mean by decentralized credit?
Yeah. So the decentralized credit that I talk about with Hedron refers to the advanced feature. And for I'm sure a lot of people in your chat know, and you included, debt. Using debt as a means to advance your financial situation is very important in our current economic landscape. You take on debt to open a business, you take on debt to get a mortgage, you take on debt to do things with substantial size that your normal job you would take too long to get via just saving up. And so, but all of the debt that we need in order to propel ourselves forward economically, there is some kind of centralized party that you're going to get those funds from. And that's not really a problem. That's kind of inherent to what debt is. You're borrowing money. It has to come somewhere. But we exist in this space where we really value decentralization, counterpartyless systems, trustless systems, where we don't have to rely on somebody else and somebody else's terms. We would rather just deal with ourselves in some kind of code base. And that's exactly what these HSIs allow us to do. We can take an advance on the system that we're participating in relative to the number of Hedron we're entitled to over time. And really, in a way, we're taking that debt against the liquidity that exists. However much those coins cost, we can get an advance of those Hedron tokens whenever we want, with the terms laid set in stone and clear for us to understand before we do it. And so this is just another example. Just like Hex gave decentralized trustless yield to individuals and the power that there is in that, Hedron gives the individual decentralized trustless credit and debt, which can be dangerous and can be harmful if used incorrectly, but if used correctly is extremely empowering and extremely useful for this kind of world we're trying to manifest, where we have decentralized financial products.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm thinking of, I got a couple game theory things that are coming to mind actually just because
Mhm.
you're saying that, which we're not going to talk about
Yeah.
now. Maybe we'll get to a little bit later, but that's risky business. We might be talking about if we go there, but still it's interesting to think about. Another question I saw here, it's not really related, but it is at the same time. It is talking about getting Hedron.
Mhm.
Limit orders on Hedron or PLSD getting hit on matches despite number being hit. So smaller caps not work maybe. Have you found any kind of limit orders or any site that specifically works the best when trying to acquire Hedron? I have an answer here for the MEV bots, but I'd love to hear what you say on the limit orders.
I've only used matcha.xyz for limit orders, and I've had a fair amount of success. But my buys are so small that my limit orders don't always go through because sometimes because
Right.
they service the larger orders first, and then
Right.
they slowly go down. So it's like if it's like a really thin and quick wick, $1,000 to $3,000 buys might not even like see the light of day
Right.
with
Right.
that one. So I've mostly just been doing market orders because I'm not experiencing a lot of slippage, and I just don't see the need to sit limit orders for the most part because I don't have much volume. I don't. But what were you going to say on that?
Oh, with just I was gonna basically I would have said anything you just said as far as the limit orders. I don't play with limit orders for most of or for any of my buys that I've done. One thing I have found for you about the beating the MEV bots, go to cowswap.fi. It's cowswap protocol is sick. So what cowswap is, normally when you swap in an exchange, you're just putting coins in one side of the smart contract liquidity pool and you're pulling them out, changing the ratio, taking a bit of a hit. But with CowSwap, what cow means is coincidence of want. So you're actually just moving coins around between people instead of going into a liquidity pool. So you're actually bypassing MEV for the most part. You're getting crazy low fees. Like I think for a similar swap on Uniswap, which would have been like 20 something bucks, I was paying like $5, if that.
Wow.
And it's really, really good. I would recommend it. I've looked into it. It seems very safe. And I've had some people that I really trust recommend it to me. And so if you haven't already, check out CowSwap protocol. Very, very good protocol for switching stuff around. It works great for Hedron as well.
I've heard good things about that. I've heard good things about that site. I've never used it, but I think I'll give it a shot after next time I need to make a buy or a sell.
Yeah, try it out. It might be the best thing. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but most times it works pretty quick and you get super cheap fees.
If you get like a quarter of the fees, I can wait an extra 5, 10, 30 minutes. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Know, right?
I'm in no rush.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mudhog says, we all know Hex will go past all-time high and think of where Hedron will be. Exactly. And I mean, it's going to take some time for all of these things to kind of run up and catch up to where they're supposed to be to have this push-pull system that we'll talk about a little bit more in depth later. But when that happens, it's going to be nuts because it's going to be a three-way Trinity positive feedback loop that it's insane to think about, honestly, the way it's designed. And so Alex, I don't know if you'll ever watch this, but man, shout out to him because holy smokes, that's an incredible design. And I don't know how he thought of it, but wow.
And did it on his own. He coded everything on by himself. He's a one-man show. It's impressive.
Exactly.
Like what Alex has done is really impressive.
I don't know. Does he sleep? Does he go outside? Yeah. Like what does he eat?
Pretty sure he has a full-time job too, like on top of all of this. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he's left it, but I'm pretty sure like when he was developing Hedron, like he had a full-time, I don't know what he does, but he had a full-time job, something tech.
That's crazy. That he is a machine. Wow. That's insane.
Oh yeah. two test nets, 2 coins all before PulseChain launches.
That's nuts, man. I don't even have words for that kind of work. That's insane. This is going to happen with every project. Everyone's in this to make money. It's going to take years to gain believers and everything, of course. But you know what? The people who do the research now, if you're here in this chat and you're trying to figure out what this is, you're one of those people who's likely, if this succeeds, to make some of the most.
Yeah.
That's just straight up. If you figure out what's going on here and you figure out that it's what you want to invest in and it does succeed, you're here at the right time. Big ifs, but there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. I'll pull up those last couple comments by Hydrology. Is something else that Alex is doing on top of everything too.
Right. Yeah.
He's building that's is a tenth of a penny. You know, just see what your bags are like at a tenth of a penny.
I don't even want to go there. This is the second one you're talking about, right? The data center.
Yep. Alex is also building a data center to make an Infura clone, which is like one of the systems that like Ethereum runs on or like utilizes. I'm pretty sure.
So
So
would that be
it's
specifically for PulseChain, or would that just be like a clone to work in tandem with Infura?
I'm pretty sure it's for PulseChain. Hydrology can correct us if we're wrong on this. I don't have the details on that, but I've seen like some of the info that he's been building on it, like images like on Instagram and stuff.
That's crazy. Holy man.
Yeah.
I feel like I've missed like a week of the Icosa chat, and I am so far behind now. Man, this is tough. But yeah, hydrology, there's levels to this. There really is.
Yeah.
Alex is a man on a mission, 100%. We got J Soul in here. Good to see you in here again, my friend. Wait, is that a Red Bull?
What?
This, I don't see a Red Bull.
Talk about this, my sparkling water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was what he's thinking. Yeah. All right. So this is a perfect time to segue over to Icosa here. Now, guys, we're gonna move to Icosa, the staking platform, and what the token is, how that all functions. But first, I'm gonna give it last like 5 minutes here while we start to get any last couple Hedron questions in, and we'll answer those for the first 5 or so minutes, and then we'll just keep going forward. So if you have any Icosa questions, now's the time to get those prepped and ready. So Icosa is really cool. So normally, so we'll start with the platform. So the platform, of course, is it starts with Hedron. Now Hedron has a way to be staked. Once you stake your Hedron, you can earn the secondary token to this whole system called Icosa. Now, in order to get Icosa otherwise, you have to remember what those HSIs were we talked about. Now, if you want to get Icosa in the beginning of this protocol or in any time really, you sell an HSI to this staking protocol or the smart contract. The smart contract issues you a number of Icosa based on the size and length of your stake. And you then have the option to stake your Icosa as well to earn both Hedron and Icosa. You can provide liquidity. You have many options to do with the staking platform as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But CryptoSloth, what's layer 2 to all of this? What's the layer 2 to the whole system here?
So let's continue the conversation we were having earlier, because I think the FUD around the centralization of supply and it being a dump token is kind of like the perfect context to like understand all parts of the system, because it really everything is kind of servicing to mitigate these inherent problems if you're trying to design a token that's a derivative of a B share.
Right.
So what I said before, we have a centralization of supply. We have a distribution of the tokens naturally that we've been seeing. The people who dumped the whales of Hex have lost 2 years of their mintable Hedron if they dumped it all. So what that means is they have to wait at least 2 years to get it back. So there's a lag time between when they can do that. But there's still this, a 2 to 3 years of, if you're being reasonable, for the system to take off. And so what are some of the common ways that crypto is what are the common ways in crypto where we're incentivized to hold coins and not sell them? And that's staking. Staking coins to earn some kind of reward. I mean, that's what Hex is all about. That's why Hex has the potential that it does, because it's incentivizing us to buy these coins and hold them for a long period of time. Icosa is that staking platform for Hedron as well as the Icosa system, so that these whales and also, us smaller players too, have a place to park these tokens if we don't want to use them for their native redeemability feature on the liquidation market. Well, there's a cool interplay there between if this Icosa speeds up the process of getting liquidations, HSIs on the liquidation market, then there's going to be this nice push and pull between, do I stake my coins or do I keep them liquid to redeem them? It's going to be a fun kind of game to be played on that level. And there are a lot of different games that can be played with all the different components of the Icosa system. But most simply understood, it's a place to park your Hedron to earn more yield. It's a place to incentivize putting HSIs on the liquidation market without having to go through the advanced function yourself. It has a smart contract do it for you. So now we kind of bypass that argument where if the Hedron price is too low to take in advance, HSIs will never go on the liquidation market. Well, now that's only going to be one avenue. We have a second avenue where if the price of Icosa incentivizes you to sell the HSI, or the yield in Icosa incentivizes you to get to sell your HSI because it's hard to get it from the market because the price is high, and it's hard to get it from your stakes because there's a minimum stake link. We now have two avenues to get HSIs on the liquidation market to get the burning mechanism of Hedron to go up. And Hedron is locked because of stakes as well.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole lot. And I think the thing that's special about, all of this is that, when you think you've understood something, there's more. There's always more. And there's more ways to play. There's more ways to move your tokens around. I mean, even just thinking about, okay, maybe you are a whale. Maybe you are a guy that has a whole lot of tokens. You got to think very carefully before staking in Hedron because you're locked in for 360 days. Yes, you're going to get a 20% bonus at that stake. However, if you need to, because what's one of the benefits of Icosa, now that guys, actually, this is one thing I'd love to touch on here real quick to add in before we continue on with this, is one of the special things about the Hedron and Icosa staking mechanisms is there isn't a maximum length stake or a maximum limit to how long you can stake, but there is a minimum. And what's great about that also is you can add to those stakes. So imagine if you're, you got a 1 year stake minimum and you're like, I got $3,000 and I want to add that into my stake. Well, boom, you can add that to make your entire stake bigger. The only downside is you reset the minimum length of your stake. Now, there's a couple factors as to what your minimum time frame is going to be at that point. But if you're a whale, you're probably somewhere around the same time frame. So you really got to play your cards right. You got to think about, like, if you want to use your Hedron for auctions, well, in the beginning of this whole staking platform, the inflation in Icosa is going to be the highest. So if you're not in those pools, you're missing out. But maybe you prioritize Hex. So maybe you're going and you're buying these HSIs, trying to accumulate Hex, and you're also burning Hedron, which then helps the price of Hedron. And it also boosts the yield for everyone else because you're not in those pools. I mean, there's so many interesting layers to this, and it goes on and on and on. So really, I want to pause here real quick and just see if there's any questions before we go too fast here, because this could go really deep really quickly.
Yeah, you get real esoteric using jargon, and then we're like, what the hell are you talking about?
And
I'm like, I don't even know, man. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know. I feel like it's always so close to there all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, we got how much does this apply? Hedron was answered. What happens to HSIs that are sold sent to the Icosa contract? Great question. So when you sell an HSI to the smart contract, the smart contract borrows all possible Hedron from that HSI, and it sends the Hedron to the Icosa pool, and that is where the majority of the Hedron yield comes from. Now, that HSI is locked and stays in the smart contract for 90 days or 89 days. On day 90, it goes up for auction. In the meantime, you've received Icosa for selling your HSI to that smart contract. Did I miss anything there? Or it's three pieces to that puzzle, really, isn't it?
Yep, you got it. Most simply, you sell the HSI to the contract. The contract just auto takes an advance on that and lets it get liquidated. The Hedron goes to Icosa stakers, and then the HSI gets on the liquidation market for people to buy with their Hedron.
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple to understand. There's a lot of moving parts here, so trying to connect all the dots at once is a lot. But if you slowly connect these dots where you can, eventually you'll see like how this connects to this and that connects to that, this connects to that. And you'll slowly build this nice big picture of what's going on. And it honestly will always seem a little bit foggy in areas, but you'll learn a ton. And it's a lot of fun to learn. There's always something to learn here. So I think, let's see here. When Lambo, probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that sounds like an appropriate conservative timeline. Yeah,
somewhere around there. Now we've touched on what happens in the Hedron pool. You were in Icosa, obviously. In the Icosa staking pool, what happens there?
Yep. So the Icosa staking pool entitles you to yield both in Icosa and in Hedron. And we talked about where the Hedron comes from. It comes from the advanced, or from the HSIs that were sent to the contract for the HSI buybacks. And the Icosa yield is paid via inflation. And so the formula that dictates that yield is the same for all three pools, the Hedron, Icosa, and we are all the SA pool. And that's the global Hedron burnt the previous day divided by the T-share rate. And so that formula is calculated, and then say it's 1,000, then there would be 1,000 Icosa for the Icosa pool that day, 1,000 Icosa for the Hedron pool that day, and 1,000 Icosa for the NFT pool that day. And it's just equally distributed amongst all the points. So when you stake your Icosa, you get a certain number of points, and then each point is entitled to an equal proportion of the daily Icosa rewards. And so the more points you have, the more yield you get relative to everybody else. Very similar to how shares work in the Hex system.
Yeah, very simply put. Yeah, it is fairly straightforward. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring up the Icosa staking platform here. And
Perfect.
where is the, let's see here.
Dude, look at you, baller. 86 of a Hedron. Damn, dude.
I
balling
go
out.
hard. I go hard into Hedron, man. You wait, one day that's going to be worth $1. I'm telling you. Let's see. How do I? No, I don't. Okay, it's over here. So, this is let's go to the PulseChain testnet. If it wants to load, connect wallet. Let's go. Icosa. There we go. Okay, there we go. So, it looks very clean now that we're here. I like it. I don't know. Is he planning on making any other changes, or is this pretty much what we're going to see when
I think this is what
when it's all live?
I think that's what we're going to see. Yeah, I think he's trying to make the Icosa site like the one-stop shop for Hex, Hedron, and Icosa staking. So you can do your native stakes, your HSI stakes, and your Icosa staking all through one place. So it'll probably become the premier place to interact with the Hex contract over time, if I had to take a guess.
It's super clean. One of the things that I saw, and I actually don't have an answer for, and I'd seen someone else ask this question as well. Let's talk about, for those of you who are in here looking around, and you're seeing like, okay, you got B points and T points. Huh, what's that? Well, what is the T points and the B points here, just for the viewers? And myself.
Same as like T shares, B shares, 1 trillion points, 1 billion points.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just a denomination of a point. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So the staking points themselves are
they're like a hex share. So like each one is equally entitled to the same proportion of the yield. So each point gets the same number of yield every single day, and then like how many points you have dictates how much yield you get.
Right, I see. And the max size is going to be in the trillion points, or is there a queue in there somewhere for some of the bigger players?
Yeah, it looks like for the testnet, the Hedron staking, there's 350.83 trillion points, and then next there'll be like your percentage of the global amount of points that exist. So like you could do that. You can look at that number and then like queue up your stake, and you'll see how many points you're going to get, and you can like kind of see like, oh man, am I going to get a lot? How much yield you're going to get relative to everybody else with those numbers.
Right. Okay. I like that. I like that. What's interesting too is like even in a day for only 256,000 Hedron, we got 0.9 Icosa.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
This is actually because Icosa is going to launch with 0 supply. Right. So the only Icosa that we're going to be able to get those first 30 days, like you were saying, are from HSI buybacks. And the numbers that we're seeing right here are actually most probably representative of what we're going to see on mainnet launch. So you see there's 350 trillion points in the Hedron staking pool, but only 7.1 billion points in the Icosa staking pool. And that's a function of more Hedron being in existence versus Icosa, because Icosa starts at 0. Now, if you remember how I was describing the way the payout each day is calculated, both pools get the exact same amount of Icosa every single day. So which one of those do you get more yield in?
Looking like pool number 1. I think Icosa staking is pretty sweet.
There is less competition for the Icosa pool simply because less Icosa is going to exist relative to the amount of Hedron that exists. So the whales in the Hedron system get to compete in the Hedron staking pool. I don't get to compete in that pool as much. It's kind of like a bonus. Like, yeah, I get to use my Hedron to work for me, but I'm not competing for that large amount of yield. Where players like us, the smaller players, if you want to start to get a nice chunk of the system, it's the Icosa pool where we can really make a dent in our like staker class or our Icosa class relative to everybody else. So that's a cool little thing to note for anybody who's watching. You know, these numbers are probably going to be like relative about what it's like on mainnet.
Yeah. I'm so excited for mainnet for this. This is going to be crazy. So one thing I want to talk about too is with Icosa, you have to make a decision almost in the early days. You know, are you going to go all in? Are you going to save some of your Hedron for the liquidations? Are you going to use some of your Hedron? Maybe this is what you have is mostly Hedron. You don't want to give your Hex. Do you buy some Hex with your Hedron to then buy some Icosa to get a little bit in the pool? Do you put like $1 in the pot for the mint, the source address NFT? Like, what do you do here? There's so many, like, what's a couple safe ways to play this in your opinion, as far as strategy goes for when it comes to Icosa, for making sure you're getting into the pool at least?
So the absolute safest thing you can do is just take all the Hedron you have and just stake it. You're not losing anything. All the, you don't have to buy it off the market, just from your Hex stakes, mint your Hedron, throw it in the Hedron staking pool, forget about it. It's free coins on top of free coins on top of free coins. No risk. And, it's not going to be a lot because it's your freemium part of the system. But, over time, it could turn into a substantial amount. We saw T-shares go from 67 cents to like $5,000, and if these tokens, their distribution are tied to that exact system that did the ROI over time, potentially these coins could do the same thing. So your freemium coins at the beginning of the system could turn out to be a large amount in the future. Totally. Now that's the potential. Now, if you want to go a little bit higher on the risk side of things, you can try to get into the Icosa staking pool. Now, if you want to do that in the first 30 days, like we were talking about, you're going to have to sell a HSI. You're going to have to sell a Hex stake. Now, if you want to do this with because that's another thing where people are like, why would I sell a Hex stake for this token? Like, Hex stakes are really valuable. Why would you give it up? And I would say to that, just use funds that you wouldn't have staked for 15 years anyways. Like use the funds that you would have invested to something else, maybe like $100 or $200 of disposable income. If you just want to speculate on the system, funds that you weren't going to punt out for 15 years, but you were still going to speculate with anyways, just make an HSI, punt it out 555, sell it day one, and then get into this pool and just let the yield accumulate. That's another fairly safe way to do it on top of the Hedron that you're staking as well. Yeah,
I love that. It is a very safe. Yeah, I mean, it is a gamble, but also it's a gamble that you're playing in the beginning of a situation where it could go really well your way. And the downside is you lose a very little amount.
It's an asymmetrical bet. And, $100, $200, a lot, the majority of people can afford. And hey, you know what? Maybe you just take $100, $200 off your liquid Hex stack and like chuck it to speculate. Like there's nothing wrong with that if you want to. And then finally, I wouldn't say this is more risky, but it's a little, you're going to lose your principal if you do this. And that's getting into the We Are All the SA pool. So for that one, it's like an adoption amplifier kind of thing where you send one of these coins that are on the list. I think it's USDC, ETH, Hex, Hedron. I think the code still has Maxi and PLSD in there. I don't know if he's going to keep those last two or not, but they're in the code right now as far as I know. And so the dollar value that you send to the pool, you get a point per dollar, and then just as like there's like 7.41 billion points and it's divided equally amongst all the points, it's the same for that pool, except specific NFTs have those points, not your stake. And in order to redeem the yield in that NFT that NFT is entitled to, you have to burn the NFT. Now, unlike the Icosa pool and the Hedron pool where you get all your principal back, this one your principal's gone. You've purchased the NFT with those coins yourself through the adoption amplifier kind of system. And so that's a little bit more risky, where it's like, well, let's get into this pool where presumably less people are going to get in because you have to burn the asset to accumulate your yield and you don't get your principal back, but it's closed after the first 14 days. So over time, as people burn their NFTs, your proportion of the pool will go up and nobody else can come in to dilute you. You'll never be diluted. You'll only be inflated within that system. So if you want to take a little, live life a little bit more on the edge, then, that pool could be for you too.
Yeah, it's a very interesting pool. I think it's really cool to me that this whole system has two of the most I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but utilitarian utility. I'm trying.
We're talking morals now. Maybe.
I just like the word how it sounds. It feels like it fits, but it doesn't. They're both NFTs just have such like value locked into them. They're the first types of NFTs that aren't based on that I've seen, really. I mean, there probably aren't the only ones out there, but it's the first couple that have such relevance to an ecosystem and have such inherent value in the actual NFT built in, regardless of the image. It's worth something underneath. And I think that Alex has done a wonderful job on this. And I think what's cool is what we're talking about. I think one of the voice chats is, with this, what's an NFT? However it may look, it will always be going up in value, and it's an NFT. And so what that means is you could actually, and I spoke about this, I think in my third or my fourth part in the series of Hedron I did, is you could actually sell your NFT on the market, or you could also buy back in at a later date, which is really, or you could buy multiple. You know, you could own the pot or own a bigger portion of the pot because maybe someone wants to cash out early and they want to, they want to sell their NFT instead of burning their NFT. So you pick theirs up, you pick a couple more up, and over time, you've got a bunch of NFTs, and now you own a whole lot of the pot. And what's really cool about this, I think if Blue or Gifford was talking about this last night in the voice chat, was, you know, if you have a bunch of these NFTs instead of just one big one, you could be slowly getting out and taking little profits here and there without completely cashing out. So that might be a strategy as well. Instead of taking 100% in, do 20% 5 times, or 10% 10 times, or 5%, I don't know how many times, like whatever works for you. This is a lot of interesting ways that you can play this. How long do you think this whole pool is going to last? Is it going to be a forever thing? Is it going to be 2 years? What are your thoughts on it?
Like, when do you think the last NFT is going to be burned?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that'll ever happen. Because in that extreme scenario where there is only one person, like, that NFT is so valuable. Like, I think these things, just like hex stakes, are like premium collateral. Both, like, we see it in terms of like the hex advanced feature, but I think as crypto becomes more integrated and like synonymous with like legacy finance, because of the fixed monetary policy behind the hex stakes, and you know that you're going to get yield in the future no matter what because you're minting your own rewards, these things are premium collateral to take loans against, you know. And I think these NFTs are the exact same situation, because you know 100% that the next day is going to have more than it had previously. So instead of selling it or you know, killing the golden goose that continues to inflate in value over time, you know, just take a loan against it, and then use that for whatever liquidity needs that need to be serviced, but you still keep your income generating asset. That's where I see these things going over time. And
that's a cool way of looking at that, though.
Yep. And so I don't ever see these things, this pool dying, just because the idea of trustless yield in a pool that nobody else can get into is too valuable to give up.
Right. Yeah. I think it's such a good point too about, like, because this is going to be constantly going up, and let's maybe paint the picture here quickly so we can fully portray what we're trying to say, what how this value is going to be constantly going up here. So I'll kind of set the groundworks here. I'll let you kind of carry it with how it's really going to cycle. I mean, we're talking about the arbitrage and the positive feedback loop that's going to be coming at some point. So what's going to happen, guys, at some point here? So that point of arbitrage we spoke about previously, where you have an HSI, you advance against it. The Hedron that you advanced out of that HSI is actually worth more than what it costs you to make that HSI itself. At that point, the person that's done that can then sell their Hedron for hex, and they get more hex than they originally had. It might be a little bit more, but it would be more. When that happens, Hedron's going to want to come down, but hex is going to want to come up. And that's not the only point that's going to happen. Icosa also has the same kind of functionality and an arbitrage opportunity. When you can mint more Icosa than you can purchase off the market for the same amount of money, then the same thing happens. You sell an HSI to the smart contract, you mint however much Icosa, you sell that Icosa on the market for hex to get more hex than you originally got, and you consistently do that. Every single time one of these opportunities happens, you're bringing the price of hex up. As you're bringing the price of hex up, you're moving the point of the arbitrage as well. And so there's also the point, though, that you talked about, how the Icosa arbitrage supercharges Hedron and the Hedron burn rate as well.
Yep. So, like, now, you know, with Hedron, we had a single arbitration point with the relative value of the Hedron price versus the hex price in order to make a 5555 stake. Now we have another arbitration point with the price of Icosa against that same variable, the 555 hex stake. And it actually stays true no matter how much hex you use. It's always going to stay the same. So now the most basic one that kind of gets the whole system rolling is that you buy your hex, you stake it, you sell it to the Icosa contract, and then you get Icosa and sell that Icosa, and then you can buy more hex with it and repeat ad nauseum until that arbitration point meets up together. Now, when that happens, HSIs get sent to the liquidation market, which means people are able to bid on them with Hedron, and that Hedron gets burned. So we are printing a bunch of Icosa because the price has shot up to bring that price down, which then later on is going to burn more Hedron, which will indirectly pump that price over time. It doesn't directly pump the price because only buy pressure can pump the price. But if there are less coins around to sell and you reduce the sell pressure, the volatility to the upside goes down and the volatility to the downside decreases. And so it's pushing the system up into the right direction without directly doing it. And so when we get that happening, the price Icosa is now pumping hex price, which is helping pump the Icosa price through that arbitration point. And then indirectly, you're getting Hedron burn, which is pumping the Hedron price, right? So now that the Hedron price is pumping, we then hit the Hedron arbitrage point at some point in time. And then that just is like fuel on top of the fire already. So now the hex price is pumping again because it's being bought to sell the Hedron. In the short term, the Hedron price is going down, but more of it's being burned in the long term because of the HSI. So that's pumping the price up even more to get a positive feedback loop with hex and Hedron in a way. But also think about this. The hex price is pumping at that side too. And so what happens when the hex price pumps? The arbitration point for hex versus Icosa goes up. And when it goes up, it incentivizes people to buy the Icosa off the market because then you're able to get a larger percentage of the Icosa staking pool without having to sell HSIs. And so the native way to increase your relative size in the Icosa pool is directly tied to the rate at which you can buy Icosa through the HSIs. So if for some reason you can get it cheaper off the market, you're incentivized to go there instead of HSIs. So the hex price goes up, incentivizing people to buy it on the market, pushing the Icosa up. And now we're just at the situation where we started with that whole loop that I just described can start all over again. Right? That's pretty much like
it's nuts. And I think the thing that I want to add in too here is that every day the T-share rate goes up.
Yep.
Which means it is harder to mint Hedron, which means it's a little bit harder to stake a T-share, which means that arbitrage point is moving up with the price and the T-share rate. Yep. And over time, I don't think for those of you who are understanding this, because I know it's probably there's a lot of you sitting there thinking, what did I just listen to?
Yeah.
But if you're still following, this is a supercharged situation that will occur if these different parts of the system connect. Once they lock in, it's going to move, and it's going to want to move very quickly. So, because we're just painting this entire picture here of what's going to happen in the system, now we've painted that Hex is going to be pulled up by both Hedron and Icosa, and Hedron and Icosa are going to be pulled up by the fact that you're going to be able to have arbitrage points. It's going to be cheaper to buy in the market than get through HSIs, yada, yada, yada. But now, because we know that things are going to want to just cycle upwards in this nice synchronous fashion, now we're going to reintroduce the idea of the We Are the Source Address NFT. Think about, now that we understand how much the system's going to want to go up in total, if we're talking about a collateralized or using an NFT for collateral, this NFT is going to be going up on two fronts. One, because you're getting daily Icosa yield. If the price doesn't move, you're constantly going up in value. But because you have an interlocked system that wants to move upwards in this crazy synchronized fashion, you almost have two hands pushing the value of the NFT up.
Yep.
You don't have one. And I haven't actually thought of that until on this stream, and that's actually an incredible thought. Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Just the values of those NFTs on the market are just going to skyrocket as the whole system ratchets up itself. And that's great for those degen NFTers that love things just going up in price with pictures of whatever the hell animal is popular that week. Maybe we'll get sloths with these ones. I'd like that. I'd see a bunch of sloths go for 100 ETH one day. That'd be pretty cool.
Dude, I hope. Please make it happen. If someone's in the chat that can help us with that, do it.
Jawa, get on it. No,
maybe that's your, what's that NFT?
Yeah. All my what's are
Or
are sloth
sloths.
and yeah.
Then it will be a
For
lot more
sure.
than 100 ETH, I'm sure, at some point
Yeah,
if you hold it long enough.
and then get this cryptographics. Those now have collector values because they're my NFTs. They have my signature.
Yeah, they're collector once NFTs. Oh my god.
One of ones, baby.
We are all the sloth address.
Yeah, that's what it actually stands for. I don't know if you knew that, but Alex pre-programmed that in as as an Easter egg.
Oh, I love it. Oh my god. Yeah, so there's a whole lot going on here, and what we were talking about too last night, I think this is the perfect time because we kind of covered everything. And actually, because we've been kind of neglecting chat, I'm going to hold up for a moment here. Guys, where are you at? Are you following along? Do you have any questions about what we just talked about? Because we just completely went off. And we're about to go further here in a minute. So while you still can, before we completely ignore chat and go off the deep end even more, let us know if you have any questions. And shout out to Crypto Vince. I see him in the chat. Let's go, buddy.
Crypto
Good to
Vince,
see you
what's
in
up,
here, man.
Big man OG here. I heard he onboarded XRP Jenna recently. So way to go, Vince.
Oh, he did.
Proud of you, man. Yeah. That was all him. We're proud of you, man.
That was an incredible stream. Oh my god. I was so happy to stumble across that in that whole moment. I didn't know what was happening when it was happening.
Yeah.
Oh my
I didn't know
god,
what was
it made me
happening
laugh.
Oh, that was awesome.
Shout out to you, Vince.
Just DCC just going.
Yeah. And the look up, man, it killed me.
I think Wales has it on his intro. I think that's like when he's doing like the told you thing. I think that's can neither did confirm or not.
Yeah.
I think you just did, Vince. I think you just
you might have. Oh, but shout out to you for being here, man. Thanks for doing that. So I'm not seeing many questions come in. So I think that's the green light for you and I to just kind of send it. So
there's one from Adil Khan, I think.
Oh, let's go here. Hedron's total supply increases every week. So how much would the total supply be at the end? Well, the end is kind of a weird way of putting that, but the supply in total will stop inflating at the rate it's inflating now, and it will take year after year. It will inflate less and less and less and less, especially as that T-share rate goes up. When we get to around like anywhere from 50 to 100,000 hex per T-share between 10 and 15 years or 20 years or however that is, it's going to be crazy how little Hedron is coming on the market. Like Hedron will be very difficult to get. And if the system is interlocked, like I can't even say the prices, even with rough conservative estimates, because they sound astronomical. Like I've made this whole model. I think I've shown you the model. What's that?
We're already there, man. We're already there. Even in this 95% dip, it costs like $200 to get one T-share. If you like punt it out 5555, launch phase is over. So you only get 5,555,000 Hedron on the end of that. At the current price, that's dust. It's nothing. Right. So we're already at the point where Hedron is like inexplicably hard to get because T-shares are really, really hard to get. And the only reason we think it's not that rare is because the price just happens to be low. But the day that price is low, isn't low anymore. Well, like the train's left the station. At that point, you can't get it from your hex stakes, and you can't get it from the market. So honestly, like the price being so low is kind of a blessing. Honestly.
Oh, it definitely is. And I think the one thing I do want to say that is accurate here, guys, is like where we are at right now versus where that arbitrage point is currently. We're about somewhere between like a 70 to 80x. I haven't done the math, but roughly last it was around 66. So I think we've moved a little away from it. So we're roughly probably around a 60 to an 80x away from that arbitrage point. So if you think that arbitrage point is coming sooner than later, or it's coming at all, should strongly consider understanding Hedron and Icosa, what it means like do the math, figure it out as best you can, because these numbers are going to sound astronomical because there's a ton of moving parts. But it's hard to, when you get the math right, it's hard to deny that those possibilities couldn't happen. So we were going off about the whole Icosa, and about the value of the NFTs. Actually, I'm realizing we have a bunch of questions here. But so before we go off the complete deep end here, do you think Icosa will be listed on any major exchanges? This will help with buy pressure. What are your thoughts on a lot of what he said there? There's a few different points you could hit on.
Yeah, probably not. And I don't think that's a goal of Alex's, or even for me, it's even a goal. I think after spending so much time in Hex, I would rather not be on an exchange, personally. And there's not going to be any token supply distributed specifically to any centralized exchanges that want to list it. And so if they want to list it, that's on them to buy up the supply that they buy up the liquidity they need to provide it. But for me personally, I'd rather stay on dexes. I see no reason why we need to be on centralized exchanges. I mean, like Lion of God is right. Like being on a centralized exchange or like a Coinbase or like a Gemini or something will help buy pressure because well, one, you get the initial pump of the listing, and then also just the friction between onboarding money and purchasing the coin decreases because you can do it on the exchange before you offload it into your wallet. Yep. But I think long term, I don't think it's significant actually at all. I don't view centralized entities as a factor for the long term success of the system, and I'd rather do it without them. To be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, even look at what's happened with all the centralized entities right now. I mean, a lot of users have their funds locked, and for all we know, those locked funds could end up in the hands of the centralized entities that are bankrupt or about to be bankrupt, and they could either be sold on the market to try and pay off some of their bad decisions. Yep. I mean, and with everything we've seen too, it's just proof. Like, why? Like, blockchain was not invented to be utilizing centralized entities. It's decentralized in nature. And while centralization can be utilized in some ways to help a decentralized system, I don't think that form of centralization is beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And, we're in Hex, and Hedron is built on top of Hex with the ethos of Hex. And what we want to do is empower the individual to have sovereignty over their finances and hold the keys to their tokens. And having these coins on a centralized exchange is kind of the antithesis to that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. Well said. So I hope that answers your question, Line of God. Thanks for the question. That's actually a really good question.
It's a good question. Good thing to think about for the health of the system as a whole, and where we put our efforts to in terms of marketing and spreading the accessibility of Icosa and Hedron.
Absolutely. Our Jojo Joy says, do you think Hedron will be worth a B share? A single Hedron will never be worth a B share. That's pretty much impossible. Because one Hedron is a fraction of however many you get in a single day.
Yep. Yeah.
It will never get there. If one Hedron is worth
a B share, we're so past the arbitration point. That's not even funny at that point.
I'll be buying Hex to stake it to advance everything, throw the HSIs away, and buy more Hex.
Yeah, look, our Jojo Joy. If you want to blast the price up that high, I will be happy to take that money through arbitration. Yes. Don't worry about it.
Like, go full send.
Yeah, what Graphics was saying, because it's a derivative of a B share, but because it's paid out every day, like it's like divided by like the average stake like days. And so because it's a fraction of a B share, because it's not really a derivative of a B share, it's more accurately a derivative of a B share that has paid out at a specific
the payout
day.
of a B share. Yeah,
the payout of like a single day a B share has paid out. That's what Hedron is now, because that division of like daily payout is equitable across every single Hedron, it kind of cancels out, and then Hedron is a derivative of B share. But if we're being technical and extremely accurate with what it actually is, that's what it is.
Right. Yeah. Well said. I wish though, man.
Yeah, dude, no complaints here, man. That's the reality we all want.
Please and ASAP. Can you post the Telegram links for Icosa and Hedron? Actually, I think they're in here in the description. If not, I'll grab this and I'll put it in chat for anyone that wants to go to. And what's cool actually is I noticed that the Icosa Telegram group, when even I got in there, which was like a few weeks ago, 700 and something members. We're double now. We're 1,400. Really cool. And actually, the numbers are really getting up. So Kings Meadow, if you go to icosa.pro or go to icosa.pro .pro, and there is a Telegram link up on the top right somewhere. If you click that, follow that link, it will bring you to the Icosa Telegram chat. There's also a hydrologist Telegram chat. I don't know how to access that one, but though there's a few Telegrams. Definitely go check those out. Hedron.pro for the Hedron Telegram, Icosa.pro for the Icosa Telegram.
Yeah, here, I'll drop some of the stuff in the private chat and you can throw it in there if you want.
Yeah, perfect. T.me. Okay, let's just go here. I'm going to drop this in the chat, guys. Give me 1 second.
And then here's the hydrologist one for you if you haven't got it yet.
Yeah, let's send all these in here. And anyway, there's only 70 people in here. You've earned it if you've checked out this, if you're here. Like, thank you.
Oh yeah, 70 people an hour in. Look at that, man.
Let's go. Got one more for you guys coming in hot, and then I will continue off of where we left off here. Let's see here. So right now, minting Hedron is more expensive than buying it on Uni. When Pulse launches with lower gas fees, won't there be more minting than buying? Potentially. Well, I mean, maybe, but
Yeah, I think they will.
yeah. What and why do you say that?
Well, so I'll give from a personal example, right? Like I have a stake coming out in like 4 days, 4 days. It's a modest stake, but it's the first one ever that's coming out, which is kind of a cool little what's we call it benchmark or whatever of my hex journey.
That is
But
cool, actually. Yeah.
yeah, it's my first stake ever coming out. Like I'm gonna unstake for the first time. I've never used that function before, so here we go. It'd be fun. But the amount of Hedron that I'm going to get is going to be less than is going to be more or about the same as the gas that it would cost to unstake it, even with these low gas prices. Like it's that little amount. So like if I want that amount of Hedron, I should just go buy it. There's no reason to pay miners to like get this small amount of Hedron when like relative to the bag that I bought, it's dust. You know, eventually it could be worth something, but like, you know, if I want it, I'll just make a bigger purchase later. Like there's no point in minting it right now.
Yeah.
But in PulseChain, it will be even if the Hedron that you mint is a penny, you know, it is worth it to do it because it's profitable to do it because the gas fees will be fractions of a penny. And so here's what you have to keep in mind. Now that we have a staking mechanism with Icosa, your yield in that pool is not dictated by the price of Hedron, but your relative position against other people who are staking. And we know that Hedron is going to get exponentially more difficult to mint over time, independent of like these gas fees. So like even that really, really small amount, I'll just chuck it into my Hedron pool or like let it sit to build into a pool I'm going to chuck into my Hedron pool so I can get a larger position over time. And even though today it may not increase my position by a lot, in the future, because I know how the system is going to inflate and I know that getting the amount of Hedron that I got today is going to be difficult, it's still worth it to do it to kind of like you know, prepare for the future kind of thing. So yeah, I do think there will be more minting on PulseChain.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense when you put that makes a lot of sense when you put it like that, actually. And Frosty Dog, 100% clear now. Lambo in about 2 to 3 years. Glad we could confirm that for you.
Yeah, yes, us psychic Lambo psychics over here. We know exactly when it's going to happen.
I'm more of a McLaren guy myself, but I wouldn't mind a Lambo.
Yeah, for fun. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it only costs $1 million Hedron at that point. Like, why not?
Exactly. Sunday car, whatever. Crypto events. I think this is talking to the centralized exchange comment here. I don't think so. We need it on centralized exchanges anyways. Dexes are fine. We risk less of the supply being hacked due to bad wallet management or whatever. Agreed.
Good point.
Agreed. QC Organics. Hey man, thanks for checking out the stream. I don't think I saw you in here before. Yeah, good to have you in here, man. Love the energy. Keep it up, guys. Derivatives for Hex are necessary. War and inflation is only starting. Thereby, perception is key. Let's go. Thanks for the comment, man. Let's see here. We got Lion of God again saying, do you guys think that the amount of Hedron that can be minted daily will ever be lower than the amount of Hedron being burned?
Yep.
Sloth, what do you think?
Absolutely. That is an absolute possibility, especially with if we get both the Icosa arbitration and the Hedron arbitration like working at the same time, that'll be a lot of stakes going on the liquidation market. And like the magnitude of those arbitration points, the greater that magnitude is or the greater that delta that is, the more HSIs are going to be put up on the liquidation, which means more Hedron burnt. And, you know, after so long, when it's really hard to mint Hedron, when stakes are minting less than 1 Hedron per day, absolutely that burning mechanism can get rid of more Hedron than what is being minted, not only that day, but even potentially what is possible to be minted that day. Yes, Hedron can be deflationary.
And let's line this up to where we were going originally before we went into the question period here. When we were talking about how this system is going to rapid fire or like kind of interconnect and just kind of spiral upwards, one of the things that we were kind of leading towards was what's going to happen, you know, with all these HSIs once they go up for auction after it's sent to the smart contract. And one thing you got to consider for what we're talking about here with is there going to be more Hedron or more burnt in a day than being minted. Let's consider this. Icosa can only be purchased in the beginning before there's any market liquidity by sending an HSI into the smart contract. If there's a major demand for Icosa, only if, but it could happen. If that happens, there are going to be a ton of HSIs. We have no idea how many and how large. But what we do know is if there is a sizable amount of those HSIs, and if we use historical evidence to kind of see into the future a bit, what's historically happened is more Hedron than what the stake is worth has been used to burn and purchase those liquidations. Yep. So if we have a mass amount of HSIs sitting on day 90, 91, 92, all the way forward, as much as it makes sense to get Icosa that way, you're going to see a crazy amount of Hedron being burned. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of a leveling over that period. And I don't know if we would tip over to more burned than minted, but I think there's a chance we could see something close to that in that period. If it's going to happen, it makes sense for it to happen then.
Exactly. And here's something to think about too. Hedron, when you burn Hedron to liquidate a stake, it will always be net more than what it costs to make the stake, but it'll always be more than the Hedron that was advanced upon. Because the Hedron that advanced upon is the base rate, so there's no 10x bonus alongside of it. This just amplifies if there's a 10x bonus in a way. But because it's that first liquidation bid is the debt that's owed, always making that first bid will be profitable and will be incentivized, because if you just wait the stake out, you'll be made whole in terms of Hedron, Right. And so you're just getting a hex stake for free if it gets liquidated for that base debt that first bid. And so you're getting a free hex stake. So anything else you're bidding is mostly bidding for the hex, not as much the Hedron, which always means more Hedron is going to be burnt than was advanced. So it's kind of net deflationary within that specific scope of taking an advance, defaulting, and then burning Hedron to liquidate. That's a deflationary mechanism within itself.
100%. And I think one thing to note too, to tie this all the way back to what we're talking about with the whales. So here's one of the luxuries that the whales have. Now, not all whales are going to want to take advantage of the fact that they've got billions of free tokens, but I think it's safe to say that there may be a couple of these larger players that still exist in the ecosystem that don't value Hedron and the system that's coming as much as they value Hex. So they may see that their Hedron tokens are their one-stop shop to acquiring more T-shares. And so if they're utilizing and only seeing their Hedron as value in that sense, they're going to burn so much Hedron in the process. And even if there's one of them, that's a lot of Hedron going bye-bye. And so this is a legitimate thing to consider here too, that could happen. I mean, maybe there's one or two, maybe there's a bunch of them. We don't know how many of these players still exist that are waiting for the opportunity to make the most of their Hedron tokens. And maybe that is the way that they make the most of their Hedron tokens, through buying HSIs. And that inadvertently makes Hedron incredibly rare, much faster than we would have expected if that situation happens.
Yep, absolutely. And let's see what else. There's one more thing I wanted to say. I don't remember, but here's another thing. Another way to frame all of this. Each of these HSIs, they can be liquidated more than once. And so now not only are they hex stakes in terms of you're entitled to more hex over time, but they're also Icosa printers. Each HSI has the potential to mint Hedron, to mint Icosa, I believe 4 times a year. Yes, 90 days, 3 months. So 4 times a year, each of these things can mint Hedron. And so if you think about the formula that is used to calculate how much Icosa is mintable from each of these HSIs, you see the T-share rate in both the numerator and the denominator, right? So new stakes are getting exponentially diluted because T-shares are getting harder to obtain and the T-share rate is going up. But these stakes that already exist have locked in their T-share rate. So the new Icosa that can be minted from these stakes is only being diluted by the T-share rate. So that's an extra value proposition already added on top of the value prop that exists just by being a hex stake, by getting trustless interest in the form of hex and Hedron. Now it has the potential to mint Icosa as well at a less diluted rate because its share rate is already locked in. And so that's another thing to think about when you're looking at these stakes at the liquidation auction. You can see them pop up multiple times because these are hex, Hedron, and Icosa money printers.
Yes, very well said. Yeah, I mean, that is actually, I have never thought of that before. That's actually crazy. Yeah, you can see recycled HSIs every 90 days, really, and that also burns more Hedron over time if they're constantly recycling and utilized for any one of those value props, really.
Yep, exactly.
That's so cool.
this is a really kind of choose your own adventure kind of system where it's like, okay, what do I like in the system, and let me try to maximize my value within that part of the system that makes sense for my personal situation. And what you'll find is whenever you try to maximize value in one avenue within the system, you're giving value somewhere else. Something else is pumping, something else is being burned, something else is being less competitive, being more competitive. With each action you choose within the system, something else is becoming more valuable, which will then direct economic energy in that way, which then does the same thing and emanates out across all other sections of the protocol. You know, it's a really complicated and beautiful Nash equilibrium that is being built right now.
All consequences have positive reactions for all associated parties, kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's just, it's so cool to think about. And I mean, so based on the T-share rate that I was given, as far as using what you have on Hex.Vision by a guy named Cycle Watcher, and I think there's another guy that had it as well.
Yeah, Cycle Watcher has some good stuff. He pumps out some good stuff every once in a while.
Some really good stuff. And I use his T-share model. And if his T-share model is correct, and the way I've calculated the Hex inflation over the next 15 years is even remotely correct, then what's interesting to note here is that the T-share rate is going up at 3.29 times faster than the inflation is coming into the Hex system.
Yeah, I know that number.
So think about that for all of this when it comes to how fast Hedron rarity is going to happen, how difficult it's going to get Icosa, and how quickly, as those are wanting to move up, they're going to be pulling the price of Hex up with it.
Yep.
This is the speed at which things could move at once this is all starting going at 3.29 multiplier on speed for how the difficulty of a T-share is going up. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. So it's inflating at like. Well, is it based on like the 3.69 inflation, or is it pegged to like the 1 point whatever inflation that's like actually being introduced by end stakes?
So the actual inflation is just total supply, not just circulating, not what's coming back into circulation.
Okay, so
it's
like 3.69 times 3.2. Okay.
So which means that this is crazy, that actually that number's higher because the circulating supply is seeing between 1 and 2% coming onto the market, which means it's even more difficult than 3.29 times faster. It's actually more than that. I just don't know how to calculate that.
Yeah, whatever that number is, it's more than 3.
Yeah, I know it's crazy.
But essentially, T-shares are inflating at like, well, it's more than 9% a year, right? So it's like 3.2 times 3.9, so it's like 11 or something % every year. It seems faster than that.
It's somewhere around that, but I think this is because I can't calculate it properly because of I can't calculate what's coming into the market. I can only calculate year after year what's just going to be put into the system.
Okay.
Right. So if I can calculate that, that'll be awesome. Maybe one day, I don't know. Maybe if I get really, really, really good at math. So far, I'm just an Excel spreadsheet noob that just knows how to do the number thing.
Yeah,
so
I'm with you. That's where I'm at too.
It is fun, but man,
I'm not a math guy too much.
I try to be, but I know I'm not. I just try my best. Let's keep going with the questions here. Where were we? We're back here. We got a free copy of Hedron Pulse. Yes, you do. I mean, assuming, well, no, Hedron you will. If Icosa doesn't launch before PulseChain, which I think is pretty unlikely at this point, then everything that happens on Icosa would only happen on Pulse. Actually, as a question, Alex would launch Icosa staking on Ethereum and PulseChain separately, but they have separate launches in that case, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So Icosa comes out before PulseChain, which means everything that happens on Icosa, the staking platform, and your Hedron gets copied over. If PulseChain beats Icosa to the market, your Hedron gets copied over, and then both Icosa staking platforms have a fresh start.
Yep.
And separate starts.
Yeah. But chances are it's coming out probably in next month in August, like with the speed that it's going. Right. Yeah. We'll probably see it in August. I'm not Alex. I'm not actually looking at the code, but like from how fast things are moving. When Icosa, August. 4 weeks. Somewhere. 4 or less weeks.
Perfect timing for that question because Optimus Prime was just asking when Icosa. So 4 weeks roughly. 4 more weeks.
Yep. Actually. That's good.
But actually this time, hopefully, Alex is pretty good. Yeah, for real. I swear. New stakes let's see here. Let's hydrology. Will Hedron ever make all-time highs?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to find out. If it ever does, Optimus, let me know. Give me a ping. I'd like to
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. I'd be curious. Let's see. We got CryptoSloth here. Hey, fam. Glad I could catch this live. Hey, thanks for being here.
Glad to have
Hope
you.
you're learning something. I know we're kind of jumping around and going off the deep end and getting some pretty technical stuff here, but if you can understand it, it's really cool to wrap your head around fully.
Yep.
So thank you for being here. What price will Hedron be at in 10 years? So many factors to that question. It's an unanswerable question, my friend. I've tried. Yeah. Higher. Here you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I got Gifford in here, brother. What's up, man? Good to chat with you last night. That was a fun chat. That was a great chat. Let's see. I don't care about anything on Hedron except the 10-year price target. Any guru price guess?
Sure. 10-year from now, Hex could probably be $100. Let's say it's very possible. $100 Hedron, $100 Hex. If $1 was like a tenth of a penny, then it's 10 cents. There you go.
Somewhere around there.
10 cents.
10 cent Hedron.
10 cent Hedron. So just take all the Hedron you have, just move the decimal place over 1, and that's how many dollars you have.
Damn.
Yeah. You're chilling, man. You're chilling. That's only 10x away from $1. So 10x's in crypto happen all the time.
Yeah. It's 10x away. So early for Hedron. Oh, I know it's gonna be crazy. What's it going on? What? Nice. Hope everyone is getting T-shares. Let's see. Optimus Hedron is pegged to the B share, so price eventually pulls up with it. Yep. I think we gave you the best guess. Mark will do what market does.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Sorry, you're missing the years. The inflation Hex is exponential, and the inflation on the T-share is not. Actually, the inflation of the T-share difficulty is, but it's on the it's. How is it even? How do you even?
I think T-shares are technically deflationary. I think shares are deflationary.
The difficulty is inflationary.
The difficulty gets exponentially harder. Yeah, because it's both the price of T-shares in terms of Hex, and then you have to assume the Hex price goes up. So if the Hex price goes up and with the T-share price going up, then it becomes exponential because it's a force multiplier on top of the T-share rate that always goes up as of the code. But, yes. So
so I'm not sure if anyone got misunderstood there. Apologize, but yeah, hopefully that cleared the air. And I'm not saying that T-shares are inflationary. They're not. They're definitely not. Let's see. What if Hex is at $5? What will the Hedron price be at? Well, I mean, the Hedron price will not be at anything. There's an arbitrage point that we could say will be the only thing that we could point to if we were to take that dollar value. Also, the T-share rate today, we could figure out what the arbitrage point is of Hedron, but Hedron could be anything. It could be higher, lower. Maybe it never reaches that arbitrage point. Maybe it goes way past it, and it's always pulling the price of Hex up, but people just for some reason want to buy Hedron forever. I don't know. It could happen.
So Optimus, if you want to figure out a theoretical price or the fair value of Hex at a certain of Hedron at a certain Hex price, just take the ratio that we were using before. A $1 Hex gets you about a tenth of a penny of Hedron, and then from that ratio you can derive whatever price that you want from there.
Would it be a tenth of a penny? You know, I don't even want to go. Yeah,
I think that's what Hedrology 101 gave us.
Yeah, exactly.
But the actual formula is the dollar value of a B share divided by the average stake length. And so if you want to just calculate it from the actual formula, that's the formula.
Yep. Well said. Let's see here. Crypto Gains Club saying price is not important. It's the amount of coins you have that matters. Think of it as money printers. If you print money, you can measure by whatever unit of account you want. True, but also price, I would argue, does matter in the end. Because I mean, if price never moves and we got 8 zeros and you're printing 1,000 tokens a day, but there's 8 zeros there. I mean, you have a money printer, but I mean, it's not a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So, you do need price to a certain degree, obviously. You don't need it to go 10 billion X, but you do need some price movement, I would argue. But I see what you're saying, and I'm not trying to undermine you. You are right, but I would argue that there's a little bit of price.
Well, that gets to kind of the point I was saying before with how we might see different rates of minting with PulseChain versus Ethereum. So in the situation I laid out before, I am minting on PulseChain because I know my relative value of coins compared to everybody else is going up, even though the dollar value of my portfolio is not going up that much. And I know in the future, those coins will be worth more. But with Ethereum, because the dollar value is so low and I have to pay a fee to even access those coins, it's not even worth it. And so you both are right. You and Crypto Gains Club are both right. Price matters, and the number of coins you have. It all depends on like the context with which you're operating from, and the time. Yep, exactly.
Yep. Because if you're early, coins matter. If you're later, then once you've got your coins, then price matters.
Yep.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. So we're both right. Cool. I like that. I like
Everyone's
the way you put
right.
that. Everybody's right in here. Measuring USD or whatever price does not really matter when you get more coins. I see what you're saying now, my brother. Okay, let's keep going here. I think we're pretty much caught up.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we're coming up to the hour and a half mark. Did you have anything, if you have any thoughts or anything that you've been, kind of pondering about the whole ecosystem that you're kind of even playing with a little bit and you're chewing on still and you'd love to share, I'd love to go through them if you have anything else. And also, guys, for anyone in the chat still, please, if you have any questions, probably be on for another 15 minutes while my camera's still alive, and would love to answer questions. And if no one's got questions, we'll go off on a deep dive here with whatever we can come up with.
Let me think what I want to share, because there's a lot. I haven't had any like new epiphanies recently. The most recent one I had was like valuing the arbitration point not in dollars but like relative to like hex. So like, what's the fair value of Icosa in terms of hex? I think that's a pretty valuable number to know. Not because I want to take advantage of any arbitration in the Icosa hex pool. And Hydrology 101 is like kind of the one that brought this to my attention. It's like, if you're selling Icosa to get hex to make the stakes, like you're moving the price against yourself while you're doing the arbitration, right? So like the price of Icosa relative to hex is going down, but like faster than it would if you try to take advantage of it in like a USD pool, or like a USDC pool. But knowing, and I think the number I calculated out is like 32 hex per one Icosa. That's about like the fair value of for the HSI buybacks. That's about how much it is. And so if you see the price of it under that, it'd be better to buy it off the market. Let me think what else. Don't be surprised if we see crazy amounts of yield that first day in the Icosa pool. Like be prepared for that. I on other streams, we're deep into a stream, so anybody who's watching, I'll give you like the real numbers. But on other streams, I was like, well, what if you saw like double-digit daily APR? Like, do you think that would incentivize people to like sell their hex stakes to like get this Icosa token? And for that number, I was actually going off some numbers that Alex ran early on, and I think you'll see it in the pinned messages in the Icosa chat. But he was saying we could see triple-digit daily APRs for that Icosa pool. So like you could like double or triple your entire bag within those first couple days, that first day. Because, and this is something we haven't touched on, but you know how the yield is determined by the burnt Hedron divided by the T-shares? Well, we've had a whole couple months of the Hedron existing without Icosa existing, which means all the Hedron that's been burnt from that launch until the Icosa launch isn't being accounted for in the Icosa total supply. And so what Alex has done, he's seeded that entire system with the about 2 trillion Hedron tokens that's been burned over the time from when Hedron launched till about now. He's going to seed the first 360 days of the pools with that burnt Hedron, so it's all accounted for. Now that's 2.2 trillion Hedron that's been burnt over those last couple months, which means if you take that, I believe that's like, I did the math at some point, that's like 23,000 Icosa per day that's going to be coming on the market. So, or is it, yeah, something along those lines. Like a lot of Icosa is going to be coming off the market. And if you look at how many Icosa you can get via HSI buybacks as a good way to kind of value these coins, one HSI sale gets you about one T-share sold to the contract gets you about 240 Icosa. And so is that now that did they erase that extra number out of the Solidity programming, so the decimal place is no longer moved? No, he multiplied it by 10. So that's a good update. So all to incentivize HSI buybacks a little bit more for like to make it easier to use that feature to like get enough coins to provide liquidity and to make the value prop a little closer to the value prop of the staking pool. All HSI sold to the contract will get 10 times the Icosa now.
Nice.
From the normal formula.
I think I like that actually. Yeah, I like it a lot.
I like it too. I wasn't sure about it at first, and I thought I was like, yeah, that's better.
240 sounds better than 24 for a 5 for a T-share.
Of for like unit bias and stuff. Yeah,
Totally.
it feels a little better. But
Totally.
so that's like every day. If it's like 23,000, I don't know if that's the exact number, but if it's 23,000 Icosa coming out every day, then that's like 100 T shares of yield that's being distributed out every day. I actually think that's too low. I think it's higher than that. But anyways, regardless, it's a crap ton of yield that's going to be out for the taking every single day. And so, be prepared for that and know that the way to get that yield is by selling HSIs. So position yourself accordingly if you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's very tempting. It's kind of hard to not want to get in at least a little bit, have a little bit of foot in on that day one, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to answer Faro Alien's question here, but also kind of going to use Crypto Vince's answer as well, because this is a great answer. Faro Aliens is asking, if you didn't see already, is there anything wrong with just buying Hedron and holding it? And Crypto Vince made a great point. Nothing wrong with that, but you do get diluted compared to the people that are staking it. So you want to go on what the dilution means within the pools if you're not staking?
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, there is a feature or a function to add principal to your stake over time. And when you do that, your stake length resets. But on the flip side, what you're getting is a larger percentage of that pool relative to everybody else. You're getting more points because you're adding more principal. Like that's what adding principal to your stake means. So for people who are just holding Hedron on the sidelines, if you're not continually adding to your stake and other people are, then you're getting less and less rewards every single day, because the people who are restaking are getting a larger percentage every single day. Now, there's a trade-off to this on both sides. The trade-off for the people who are adding principal is that it takes longer for them to be able to realize their gains because their stake length is resetting. And for the person who's getting diluted, the trade-off is that they'll be able to sell sooner because they're serving the entirety of their stake length to be able to obtain that yield and sell it to actually realize those gains.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all what you want. Like if you're looking to cash out, you're probably not going to add any principal. You're going to get diluted until you end stake. If you got a multi-year time frame and you're like, I don't care. I just want I want to accumulate as much as I possibly can for the foreseeable future, and you just keep adding every day.
Well, what's interesting about this too is like it kind of almost forces you. You have two avenues of adding, because you got the Hedron pool and you got the Icosa pool. So you got two. Like if you're just focused on the Hedron side, and you want to make sure that you're updating your Hedron stack so that you're not getting diluted, really you have two options. One, buy. Two, stake Icosa. You need Icosa to get your Hedron as well. So really, to not get diluted in both, you kind of need to be in both of those pools. You need to be playing the game in order to not get diluted. And even if, let's say, you're on the extreme end of things where you're like, I'm going to go and I'm going to just put in I'm going to go in the WhatsApp pool. I'm going to wait 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, a year, something like that. It doesn't matter, until my stack is big enough. Then I'm going to take my NFT, I'm going to burn it. I'm going to take my yield. I'm going to throw that in the Icosa pool, and I'm going to make up all of the inflation that I lost. Well, guess what? The inflation's probably died down a lot. More users, you're diluted as far as what you're going to get. You kind of have to participate in the first period.
Yeah.
If you're going to want to get the most out of that and not get diluted, it almost forces you, if you're wanting to keep up with the system and maintain or move up in ranks in token holdings and yield that you're going to get as well. So you have to be in it in order to actually play the game. You can't sit on the sidelines and still make a lot of yield. Hex is a different system. Like you can stake an amount of Hex and people can hop in slowly. Like your daily payout will go down by like 0.01 or 0.02 or 0.03. But from what you're implying and from what I understand too, it's not going to be that subtle. It'll be pretty drastic.
Yeah, it'll be pretty drastic. This is that like hyperinflationary period of the system, kind of like with Hex. It had its adoption amplifier where a bunch of coins were being distributed for like a year. This is kind of similar, where we're having a bunch of coins being distributed to the stakers over a year, and then once that's over, then it just becomes the Hedron that's burnt becomes the rewards of the pool. So it's a little less predictable in the future for how much yield you're going to get. So like. Maybe you want to be more positioned in the pool for those specific days where there's a lot more burnt Hedron. I'm thinking, this is also important too for people listening. There is a secret function that will exist in the contract. Well, not secret because it's a public, but it won't be on any like UI where you can like seed Hedron liquidity to the pools. So it'll like act as like burnt Hedron,
Right.
and then it'll be able to like, and you could choose like how many days you want to distribute it for. And I don't think that that Hedron is actually burned. I think that Hedron is actually distributed as rewards too. But Hedrology 101 can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But so there is, if the system is healthy and Hedron is being burnt daily and to get Icosa rewards and Hedron rewards via HSI buybacks, if that system's running, that's great. But if for some reason it needs a little jump start, there is an avenue for that as well.
Right.
For any entity that wants to help the system.
That's actually really, I remember Alex was saying something about that. And I think I remember exactly what he was saying was what you just said. So I think you nailed it. But yeah, it's a crazy feature to be having. Someone can just activate that and just see that pool when you're caught with your pants down and boom, you missed that. You missed a few days. Maybe you just don't even check. Maybe you missed a week.
Exactly.
Maybe it's one day. I want to keep going here because we're getting down to the wire here before I got to hop off. Let's keep going with some of these questions here. So after the first 360 days, the yield will be less in the pool because the pools will have utilized the seeded burnt Hedron. So after the first 60 days, the yield will be less in the pool because the pools will have utilized the seeded burnt Hedron. Yes, exactly.
Not necessarily, but like probably. So like the guaranteed yield is gone after that first 360 days, and it's all based on the metrics of the system, like I was just saying. So potentially it could be more. Like we were talking about those crazy like positive feedback loops that are triggering other positive feedback loops, which is just like insanity, right? Like it's possible that like more Hedron is being burned than what was seeded for each individual day. Like that's totally possible. How sustainable that will be, I don't know. But like it's a possibility. And also keep in mind that like because a lot of these tokens are like not deflationary, but like asymptotically inflationary, like to a certain point. Like if the price goes up, we may not need as many coins to get the same APY in terms of dollar value. So like your APY in terms of like Icosa may be going down, but if Icosa has like 1,000x and you're getting like 100x less Icosa, do you really care? Like,
yeah, that's a great point. Exactly. Let's see here. Can't answer that for you, but if you think it's worth it. Another one here that was really good. So like we said, will Hedron or Icosa ever be more valuable than Hex? Individually, Icosa will be worth more than one Hex, but it's different. You're not going to have the option to get billions of Icosa most likely. Maybe, but like it'll take a long time to get there, and the chance of you can't buy it like you can buy Hex. You can't market, but you can go market buy 1 million Hex. If you want to go market buy 1 million Icosa, I'm sure that's going to send the price of Icosa up to some insane number, and you're going to move the price against yourself.
I mean,
just based on patterns of what we've seen liquidity.
If there are a million tokens in the liquidity pool, like it might not be actually that many tokens out to buy.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if we did the math today, I think it's roughly around like $17 for an Icosa based on the price of Hex today with the T-shares and everything. It's somewhere around there. So even if that's the case,
I think it was $3. Like $3.
Was it 3?
Yeah, it was. Well, now that we have the 10x,
right,
that lowers it. That lowers
right.
That.
You're right. Okay, so $3. That means someone's got to. If there's 1 million tokens, it's $3 million. Someone's got to have provided $6 million in liquidity.
Yeah, which eventually we'll get that thick of liquidity at some point. Like sure,
right. Well, and if you're playing the V3 game, it changes things a little bit. You can concentrate, but I mean, still, that is a lot of liquidity. It depends on what happens with how much economic energy wants to move into Icosa at the end of the day. So where are we? There's one more I think I want. Yeah. So this point Crypto Gains Club is making here before we hop off. I see Hedron economic energy feeding Hex. Now this is what I've been trying to say to anyone that listens. This is the point of Hedron to feed Hex. Yep. Which then feeds Hedron, which then feeds Hex, which feeds Hedron, which feeds Hex.
Yep.
It's the snake eating the tail, but while it's eating the tail's growing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's making the jaws bigger and making it be able to eat more. And then it's just like this crazy thing.
It just gets to a point until like it's like its own like perpetual like bubble, like it's creating, and eventually it'll pop, and then it'll probably go down really hard, and then that'll give you a chance to like get more tokens in a way. But it's like like pushing like the ramp up button on like inflating that like speculative bubble by like a lot.
Yep.
And then like and then keep this in mind too. Every feedback loop that we've talked about, like at some point, like involve taking Hex and like punting it out 15 years. So all this is just, it's not only putting energy into Hex, but it's also deferring the, it's also locking up supply for a very long period of time, longer than cryptocurrency has existed so far.
Right. And even if those are small amounts of Hex, like those add up, right? A T-share and a T-share here, a T-share there, all these slowly getting taken off the market essentially. That's a lot of Hex over time. And if the value prop gets out to more people and more people decide that like, sure, I'll throw a T-share at it, I'll throw a T-share at it, I'll throw a T-share at it.
Yep.
Eventually there's going to be a lot of Hex locked up for 5555 that's just gone for a while for a specific purpose of engaging with this ecosystem, which ultimately feeds Hex. So everywhere you look, every mechanic, everything you can do empowers this ecosystem, which is just like nuts. It's so good.
It's awesome. I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm super excited.
Oh, dude, you know what? With all the conversations we've had in like the Icosa Telegram, the voice chats, even just chatting with Alex in there, coming on stream, all the videos that are coming out. I mean, Hedron just ate a 0 as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's on the brink. It's on the brink, but it's there. So I mean, with all this going, it's just so much to it's just so cool. And PulseChain's around the corner, and we got PulseX coming at the Pulse token. We got so many crazy other projects that are going to be so cool to dive into. Man, there's just so much to be excited about right now.
While everybody else in crypto is all upset and sad, you know, we have everything to be excited about.
I know this is the best bear market I've ever heard of. But man, guys, thank you for your questions. Unfortunately, though, we're gonna cut it off here. I gotta run. It's getting a little late. Sloth, my man.
Hey,
great to finally,
man.
Dude. Thank you for finally coming on. It's great to finally connect and have a face-to-face conversation like this and do it with everyone else.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
The first of many.
Definitely.
We'll get you on mine. We'll keep doing these perpetually after mainnet, after PulseChain, like all of it.
100%. We need to do this regularly and keep the information flowing with all of this. And guys, before we go, please, I have the Twitter link for Sloth's Twitter as well as his YouTube channel. Go smash the follow. And then also, he's so close to 1,000 subs. Share this video. Tell everyone and yourself to go subscribe to his channel. Tell everyone else to go subscribe. Let's get him to 1,000 subs. The guy has earned it easily. And also, if you haven't already, smash the like for the video, share it out, smash the subscribe button. And there are links in the description for if you want to buy any merch, you can book a call. There's a donation link, whatever you want to do. If you decide to support the channel, helps me out. Be awesome. So guys, thank you all for being here. It's been an amazing conversation with you, Sloth. Amazing questions from you, chat. I can't wait for the next one, which is coming very soon, guys. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday night and a great rest of your weekend. If it's a long weekend for you, enjoy the extra day. We'll catch you guys very soon. Peace.